Hi everyone, Brindley Little here from your Land Partner and Property Developers Academy, coming to you today for your today's instalment of 100 in 100, instalment number 48, getting towards the end of step 3 in the development life cycle, which is secure. And today's topic is all about heads of terms. So the preliminary documentation that we sign and we draft and we sign prior to getting the legal contracts drawn up. Now, we frame this early on with respect to our meeting structure, as we've probably already covered previously. We work on a 3-meeting cycle, and during meeting 1, we let landowners know that we are working to a kind of a bit of a structure. So meeting 1 being sort of that connection, meeting 2 being the proposal and discussions in and around that, and then meeting 3, the objective is to get to heads of terms. So by this point, the landowners know and they're primed that we are looking to get to a point where we are going to get some commitment and ascertain some specific details and get them to sign something that we can actually move forward with. Typically, not everybody signs sort of heads of terms and gives that up then to the legal team. Depends on the deal, the type of deal that you're actually doing. But with regards to development projects, there's a lot of different moving parts, different parts to the deal, different parties, different terms. So we want to iron those out and make them as easy to understand as possible. So the heads of terms really is kind of like the summary of the legal contract, even though it's preceding it. It's the summary of a legal contract in plain English, basically. So what we want to determine is just a few headings within a document, just to make sure that we've got the right details. And if you can produce a good set of heads of terms with plenty of detail, then that can often make the legal process a lot easier. It doesn't always. The legal process is hit and miss, as it is anyway. So we want to give ourselves the best chance by making sure that the details provided to the legal team are the correct ones. So you can do this in different ways. Heads of terms can just simply be a bit, almost like a blank piece of paper, and you start from there and you write a few things down and you get some commitment, all the way to more of a kind of legal type looking document, which is what we favour, to be fair, and it's got different headings. So first of all, you'd have things like the parties involved, so you get them to put their details down. You might even, if you've got templated versions of these, you might even pre-populate some of the information, such as your personal details, your company details, your solicitor's details, and then the rest of it is very much custom. So you'll have the parties normally at the top. You'd have any room for any agents if applicable, because if they've got a land agent working for them, commercial agent working for them, then they're going to want to include their details, because they're probably likely to want to have them included in the discussions and negotiations, and they'll want them to review the legal contract, etc. You'll have solicitor details for both sides. Now, you might find yourselves in a scenario where on the landowner side, they don't have a solicitor capable of working on these types of deals. For example, if you're doing like a promotion agreement, for example, you want to make sure that the legal team acting on the landowner's side is familiar with those agreements and have done them before. So that might be a case of suggesting a few that they might be able to then contact and use. The agreement type, in terms of obviously if it's an option, a promotion agreement, depending on the agreement type will depend on the details that are then in the heads of terms. For example, if it is a promotion agreement, then you're going to want to have details in there such as the minimum land price, the contract term, and any rights such as preemption rights, any assignment rights, things like that. If it's an option, for example, can you assign the option to somebody else? You want to have details on the term itself in terms of length of time. So if it's a 3 or 5 year promotion agreement or option, even if it's conditional contract, if conditional purchase contract, conditional of planning, for example, are you going to work to specific timelines? With deals such as conditional deals, such as subject to planning, you want to detail, well, what planning is the agreement subject to, because obviously subject to planning is the headline, but what is the actual substance behind that? How many units is it? How many meterage of new build? And with regards to deals like that, it's often then annexed. So your heads of terms and your legal contract will be annexed with a document that may have it tabulated, for example. So if the deal's conditional on getting 1,000 meters of new build, and you go down that process and you only get 900, then do you want to be having the dispute further down the line, or do you want to make sure that that you've got all those details ironed out early on? You might not get all these details in the heads of terms straight away. Don't worry about it, but the more detail you can put in heads of terms, the better chance you've got of the legal team not coming back with supplementary information and then just prolonging the process. You'll have a section on obligations, potentially, so vendor obligations and purchaser or developer obligations. So some of the things that you've agreed between yourselves that you're going to do and perhaps they're going to do. For example, on the vendor side, it could be that they're not going to obviously let the land to anybody in the time period. They're not going to use the land that will have a negative or a detrimental effect on the planning process or anything like that. You may want to have specific information in there in terms of they might want to retain access during a certain period of time. So you put in details in there such as that, and obviously your obligations as the developer or the purchaser in terms of what you're going to do by when. As I said before, you've got potentially things like assignment. So if you're able to assign the contract to somebody else, you may have some specific details in there with reference to an overage, for example. So they're very much deal specific, but basically what you want to do is set out your heads of terms document where you've got the parties involved and the kind of legal side. So it's the who, it's the what, in terms of what types of agreement, it's the where in terms of obviously the property information, the site information, might even be reference to the land registry, title number, and then you would annex the plan to that when sending it to the legal team, and then obligations basically, and then obviously a signature at the bottom. So maybe a two page or something like that, 2 or 3 pager, depending on the amount of information that's custom to that particular deal. But it's really good practice, good sort of best practice, industry best practice, if you can work to a similar set of documents. So if you've got a templated heads of terms, you can then use that for the different types of projects that you're working on. Whether or not you brand them, that's entirely up to you. Some see that as a bit more professional, that you've got all your documents ready to go. Certainly if you're producing marketing material, leaving marketing material like brochures and things like that. We used to provide landowners with a heads of terms explainer. So it's almost like a skeleton example heads of terms for an option or a promotion agreement or a conditional purchase or whatever it may be, and just have some comments next to it in a branded sort of brochure type document with some comments just saying, oh, this means that. So it's kind of making sure that they know. And if we leave that for them in advance of the third meeting, they know that when we come back for the third meeting, that's what ideally the outcome is going to be. So once we've got heads of terms signed, we're sending that off to the legal team, and then it's important about managing that process as closely as possible, and that is the subject for the next 100 in 100 number 49, so managing the legal process. So hopefully you found some of this information useful, and we'll catch up with you again next time. Thanks very much.